मुखम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघयति गिरिम यत् कृपा तमहम वंदे परमानंद माधवम. Good morning to everyone. Thank you all for coming at this early hour. It is a great pleasure and privilege to welcome of you this 2-week national workshop on educational research methodology, which is conducted Center for In-Service Teacher Education, National Sanskrit University, Tirupati. Today, 7th day, first session of this workshop. I am cordially welcome to our respected Director Sir, Coordinator Sir, participant, dear colleagues and students. Join hands together. Again, I would like to extend an amiable, energetic, dynamic resource person, Dr. S. Prabhu Shankar Sir. I hope you will enjoy this session. Thank you for joining us. Please, sir, take the session.
Very good morning. Very good morning. So once again, I'm very much happy to meet you all in the morning. Any session on research is very important, irrespective of the number of sessions you attend or irrespective of the number of speakers you listen to. Each session on research methodology will be an eye-opener for any research scholar who is a seeker of knowledge. So in that way, this particular session I will try to elaborate certain aspects on. Actually, what the area given to me is measures of dispersion. Please. Back. The back, the first slide. So the area given to me is this measures of variability. And what are the various measures of variability, what are the characteristics of the measure, and at what instances we use those measures. So this is the area that is given to me. And if it is, as you all know, the measures of variability are range, standard deviation, quartile deviation, average or mean deviation. Then we have range, variance, standard deviation, quartile deviation, mean or average deviation. So these are the widely used measures of deviation. Each measure has its own application in the area of education research. For example, yesterday I was talking about interquartile range. So where we use interquartile range? Primarily where we use range. For example, if you are developing a tool, your tool will, each one of your tool will be the total of your tool, for how much you are evaluating. What is the ultimate score? If somebody is having a tool of around 55 items, I know you are all aware of the procedure on how to arrive at the total of your tool. In the present day context, generally we don't depend on the previous tools that we are using. Till 2000 or till 1995, generally in any departments of education, they will ask you to refer to certain books. Once you are joining MED, the first day they will be talking about certain books. For us, our professors were talking about 2 books. Even now the books are very famous. One book is by Uday Parikh and Pestonzi, Psychological and Sociological Instruments by Uday Parikh and Pestonzi. And the other book is by T.V. Rao. That is he is a management professor, and his book also is of the same area, Sociological Instruments. So these 2 books are the Bibles for tool development. In the previous years, but in the present, even now the books are available, and the books are getting published in 2 volumes by Concept and Communication publishers nowadays. Even very recently we purchased the book for our library. It is 1,100 rupees per volume. It comes around somewhere in 2,000. And any MEd scholar, any MEd or BEd scholar should definitely go through that book. Because of why? Because of the direction of the tool, because how the statements are written, whether the items are written in a question form or whether the items are written in a statement form, self-directional statements. So to understand the direction of, because many of us do not know the direction of the item. Simply we say we will develop a tool, we will give it to the respondents and we collect it, ultimately we score it, and we simply say if the score is high, whether it is a mental health or whether it is stress adjustment, because primarily to begin with, whatever variable it is, the first duty of any research guide should be to define, to tell you whether that particular variable is a negative variable or a positive variable, or whether it is a neutral variable. In the sense, if I am taking stress as my variable, stress is primarily a negative variable. Okay? Stress, kindly listen to me very keenly, because this is very important to score your tool. So stress is a negative variable. In case if I am developing a tool in a positive direction, how it will be? Positive direction items. I will not become anxious easily. I always feel energetic. I always feel confident. So this is the positive direction of items for stress. So similarly, I can develop the same tool by writing all the items in a negative direction. The nature of the variable is positive or negative? Negative. So again I write it in the same way, negative direction. For example, you say, I always feel anxious. My hands sweat very often. I don't feel good with my stomach. So these are all the indicators of stress. So I write all the items in a negative direction. So there are 4 probabilities. Actually, the first probability is higher the scores, higher the stress. Lower the scores, lower the stress. Higher the scores, lower, and lower the scores, higher. There are 4 probabilities. Now, only having these contexts in mind, you should go for the scoring procedure. And one more thing is that in the present day context, we are not depending on the previous tools. For any research, it is advisable, according to even right from APA 5th edition, we are constructing our own tools. When you meet certain professors, they will always tell you go for that tool, you go for this tool. But in the present day context, especially with the evolving of the different editions of American Psychological Edition norms, association norms, we are encouraged to develop, even at the PG level itself, you don't go for adopting a tool. Even though you adopt a tool, you try to modify all the context of the items. Irrespective of the number of items, you try to maybe you may find it difficult to create an item. For that sake, you adopt a tool. So there are certain number of items. Your idea of how to create a tool is more or less similar to the tool that you are adopting. But ultimately, that tool will not serve the purpose of your research, because the context that was developed for that particular tool is a different time context, different sample context, and it will not suit your own locality, your own style, your own context. So what you do is, you try to modify all the items, irrespective of the number of items, you try to modify certain context of the items, you adopt the tool. And even though you are adopting it, there is no need to mention in your thesis, there is no need that I have adopted the tool but I have modified the context, there is no need. If ever you are totally adopting the tool for your research purpose, then you state, I have adopted the tool developed by Ian and Thor developed during this particular year. Or else when you are developing a tool, you can simply say it is a self-constructed tool. That's all. Self-constructed tool by the researcher. So the nature of the variable matters most. Whether it is a positive variable, any variable, whatever, if it is emotional stability, it is a positive variable. If it is a emotional instability, it is negative variable. So if it is mental health, it is a positive variable. If it is adjustment, it is a positive variable. If it is maladjustment, negative. So likewise, any variable, firstly you should be able to understand the nature of the variable, then the direction of the items of the tool. Only by keeping this in mind, you can go for the scoring procedures. So how you can apply this standard measures of deviation, dispersion in your tool is primarily you have to fix a range. So you may be knowing about how to score your rating scale. So if you have some 1 to 30 items, for example, you have the ratings, you have 5 ratings or 4 ratings. For example, always, often, sometimes, and never. So like this, you have some 4 options. So what is the total of your tool? What is the total? 4 into 30. 4 into 30 is 120. So the 120. 120 is the total score. So ultimately, I already told you that any tool should have dimensions. All the items should not be listed as one dimension. you have to always keep in mind the structure of the master table. If internet is connected, I will try to show you a master table. So for any independent variable, for example, if you are taking adjustment as your independent variable, I already told you that adjustment has certain dimensions. Even if you are referring to certain theories on Bell's adjustment inventory or recent some adjustment inventories, they will have some dimensions. Health adjustment, emotional, social, personal, marital, likewise there are a lot of adjustments. So whatever dimension you are testing, you try to put 3 or 4 dimensions. If it is 45 items you are having, so 45 into 4, 90, 90, 180 is the score. So 4 into 45, it is 180. Okay, the total of your tool is 180. So ultimately what you are doing is, you are having 4 dimensions. At the embed level, what we generally do is, so 1 to, if it is 45 items, 1 to 11 items or 1 to 12 items maybe with 1 dimension. We serially put that at the PG level. But in PhD level, what we do, instead of serially putting it, we try to develop a scoring sheet. You interchange the items. Any item you put anywhere, but with the help of color pens, you try to highlight the first dimensions, the second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension. You develop a scoring sheet. So for this purpose, you have to visit your library or visit your psychology lab in order to know what is a scoring sheet. Scoring sheet is a simplified format. There is no need of taking 1,000 copies of Xerox of your adjustment inventory or any inventory. Instead, you prepare 1 page of scoring sheet. You give the tool, you give the scoring sheet along with it, ask them to score it in the scoring sheet. When you can come back, you get the tool back. The same tool you can utilize somewhere. So likewise, you have arrived at 1 total. If it is 45 items, I am dividing the 45 items either equally or randomly. 1 to 11 items and 12 to 20th item and 20th to 35th and 35 to 40. So there are random number of items in each dimensions. So you know, if there is a tool, there are to be some dimensions and your total is 180. So you are collecting the responses from 200 candidates, 200 students. Ultimately, one person will get 110. The least minimum will be 110 for the 180. The maximum of the score will be somewhere around 145. So this is your minimum score of the tool and maximum of the score of your tool. So with how many number of students you collect, there is a minimum score. But there are some standard errors. Many of the students, many respondents, even some teachers also, nowadays there are a lot of research tools coming in, and generally they will not take it very seriously. And even the tools are also not that technical, because many of the tools you receive, there is one problem called obvious scoring. If somebody is giving you some teacher effectiveness scale, ultimately you can observe that you are forced to tick either agree or strongly agree. Because the teacher will be asking questions like, am I effective? Do I use PowerPoint presentations through my presentation session, all that. So many tools in the present day context, it suffers obvious responses or forced responses. Because what they expect is strongly agree or agree. Simply all the responses will be strongly agree or agree, whatever you are making. So that tool will definitely suffer significant problems. Mean will be very higher or mean will be totally less. So it will suffer some problems. If it is a good tool, and if the respondent psychology, if you understand the respondent psychology, and if you are administering, because that is the power of administration. As a research scholar, you have to be present in the place where you are collecting the data, and ultimately you should fix a time. And the administration, the physical environment of the tool, while you are administering the tool, also should be of a controlled environment, so that they will take it very seriously. Within the 20 minutes, they will take everything and they will give it back to you. Okay. So if there are certain responses that are not put in seriously, you try to take out all the responses. Don't worry about the numbers, because for one of the theses we collected nearly 1,800 samples. We collected data from 1,800 samples of undergraduate students. But ultimately, when we went for second data collection, we have met only 1,400 students. And third time when we went for data collection, we met only 1,200. And ultimately, we have taken all the sample errors are not so properly ticked responses, and ultimately we had only 640 samples. Don't worry about the sample size, but ultimately the effectiveness of the responses are
to be considered, taken into account. Okay. So this is the tool. So what is range actually? What is range? Range is the highest value minus least value. Least value. So we do apply range here. Like primarily we do apply range because you are going to tell somebody else will not come and tell. You have to develop a scoring procedure and you have to develop a measurement. Okay, measurement process. Actually, measurement is different. Scoring procedure is different. What is measurement of the tool? Measurement of the tool is you simply say how you are going to measure, how you are going to mark your rating. Because what many of them will do, for never they will give 0 marks. Please don't give 0 because it will affect the normality. If you are a maths person, you will easily understand what I am talking about. And similarly, don't go for maybe it is not actually written rule. Don't go for 3-point scaling. And if it is agree, undecided, and disagree, if you give disagree in the middle, if out of 100 students, 20 students are taking up the disagree, then you will lose the normality again. And don't give zeros to any of the options. So even ratings are far better. Even rating scales are far better. Either 4 or more than that, 6. Okay, even if you go for 5, you have to give the least minimum score as 1. Don't give 0. Because please remember this particular phrase that whenever you are giving 0 or whenever you are opting for any 3-point scaling or 5-point scaling, it will affect the normality. It will affect your normality. And one more condition is that nowadays they do many of the when you go through certain books very seriously, you understand that these are also has to be in line with the work you are doing. And for all the tool you should not use agree, strongly agree, decided, undecided, and always, often, sometimes, never. These should not be the terminologies to be used for all the tools. So you have to create your own options. I have so many options worked out in some other presentation. So you have to create. To some extent it is true. Not true to my perception. So I find it difficult to give my opinion. Likewise, the context of the tool, with regard to that, with a minimum of 5 to 7 words, you can phrase your own responses. Okay. So this is one important condition in the modern day research. The tool should not go with the same terminologies. For everything you should not go for asking always, sometimes, and agree strongly. The same thing you should not use. This is one condition. So now that you have collected, and this is your minimum scoring. If, for example, you say you have collected it with 300 students, say the minimum score for this particular tool is 110 and the maximum score is 145. So you are going to fix a range for your own tool. You are going to fix a scoring procedure. Okay, what is the scoring procedure? You say that this is an adjustment inventory. So for adjustment inventory, the maximum score is minimum is this and the maximum is this. So what you need to do is you have to find the midpoint. What is the midpoint of this? So 110 plus 145. This is 5, 5 and 2, 255. So what is the midpoint of this? 126 or 127? 127. You say 127 is the midpoint. So you know 127. So again you find out the difference between this. So 110 and 127.
237.
110 and 127. So this is 237. Similarly, you find the midpoint of this. Then you say this particular value what you have got. 237 means this is 115, 115, 230. Then so 117. And similarly, you have 145 and 127. So 12, 157, 172. Sorry, 272. So you have 150, 137. Okay, one. So now you say 110 to 117 and 117 to 127 and 127 to 137 and 145 to 180, 145 and above, 110 and less. So this is how your scoring should be. For any tool you are developing, this is how you should fix the scoring procedure. So this is what is called as mid-quartile range. Okay, mid-quartile range. Okay, so this is how you should arrive at the scoring procedure. So this is the application of why we learn range, variability measure. No, the first measure is the simple measure called range, highest value minus the least value. So that what we learn there, we are applying here in order to find the range and then the level. So somebody will ask you low, high, average. Only low, high, average is not the terms you should use. So if you are doing adjustment is a positive variable. Then you are constructing all the items in a positive way. As I already told you, higher the scores, higher, and higher the scores lower, and lower the scores lower, and lower the scores higher. There are 4 possibilities. Okay, you should keenly look into how the direction of the items are and the nature of the variable. If both are positive, you can say higher the scores, the adjustment is better. Lower the scores, the adjustment is lesser. In between, you can make average adjustment, low adjustment. Likewise, you can. If you don't want so many ranges, you simply fix a range between 110 to 127 and 127 to 145, 145 to and above, and 110 and below. You can simply say this is higher, this is very good adjustment, this is moderate adjustment, this is average, and this is below average. Okay, likewise, this is where we really apply range and quartile deviation, interquartile. Okay, so this is how you should know where deviation is applied. Maybe in this particular presentation, we will be looking, because I am not going to go along with the presentation. As we know, when we are applying all the statistics, when you come to know when you are applying all the statistics, definitely you remember statistics far better. Nowadays, there is no need for you to learn, even though there are certain important formulas that each and every one of you have to learn, have to keep in mind the formulas, have to know what is happening when you are connecting certain things. Unless you are looking into certain details of the formulas, you may not know what is happening with the statistical part. So for that purpose, I try to present you certain important statistics. Like you have to know, basically you know raw data and classified data is continuous data. You should know whenever you do mean for raw data and mean for continuous data. Similarly, you have to know mean for standard deviation for raw data and standard deviation for continuous data. So this is very important for any advanced level statistics. Ultimately, the knowledge of mean and the knowledge of statistics is the measures of dispersion is very important. Okay, basically whether you belong to social studies or any other sciences, you please learn how to solve the basic central tendency measures and the basic standard deviation. That is your deviation measures. Okay, if you know that, then you are very much good at statistics. Any statistics, you know what is happening with it. You have to, because there is no time, and if there is a blackboard like structure, I would be solving each and every problem beautifully. So there is no such provision is available for us with the time. So I just leave it here. So here we are applying the interquartile range. So then where do we apply standard deviation? What is deviation? Standard deviation is one vital measure. Okay? Standard deviation very often we use in data collection. And very often we interpret while writing the interpretation part. So a good standard deviation, as I already told you, a good standard deviation to be applied anywhere, right from data collection. You have to apply standard. Yesterday I told you, when your professor is asking you to collect 200 samples, you should not go to 3 schools, collect 200 samples. You should go to many number of schools, little sample with each and every school. So this is the basic concept with regard to standard deviation. A good standard deviation will provide you a wonderful scattering of the population. Okay, and there should be sample subgroups, because sample subgroups are mostly limited. If I say gender, sample subgroups are limited to 2, that is either male or female. And if I say type of schools, it is again 3 or 4, maybe your corporation schools or your government schools or aided schools or private schools. Likewise, the standard deviation will have a greater impact on your statistics. Indirectly, it influences your statistical measures like anything. Because at the PhD evaluation, we generally look into certain important aspects. And especially when some strict professors are there,
definitely they will not compromise with your statistical part. And there are many softwares. Last week also I was there with one pre-Viva presentation, wherein the presenter was presenting her thesis. She is about to submit and she has binded her thesis. And ultimately she was presenting, I was sitting there, I took the GraphPad software, I was just checking out immediately by putting n, you can also simply try with the GraphPad. You can check the standard deviation score, or you can check the t-value, everything you can check instantly. And I told her much of your statistics is basically wrong. You kindly change the thesis, the statistical part of the thesis. So any serious professor will definitely look into the statistical part. And as I already told you, even though the numbers maybe you say actually there are 4 dimensions. The actual tool has 140 questions. Actually we have taken only 45 questions, no? The actual Bell's adjustment inventory is a very standardized tool developed during 1913. That was the oldest tool we ever know in our psychology. So it was a very standard tool, 40 items spread into 4 dimensions, 40, 40, 48. It is only yes or type. Whenever you say yes or no, it is a checklist, it is not a rating scale. Okay? Yes or no, true or false. In the present day context, we don't use checklist. Okay? We use rating scales, because rating scales your measurement is precise. Your expected responses are put in a very precise way. When you ask some girl whether you like this person or not, previous times, even if it is marriage, she has no option to say whether to what extent she likes. They will simply ask whether you like or not. She has to come to some conclusion. Okay? And in the present day context, everything is very categorized. They will give you 1 to 10 scale, and they will ask where do you rate the person. The girl can precisely say the person is even somewhere between 5 and 6. It's not 5 and 6, in between that. Okay? So the ratings are far better. So previous times we used generally, yesterday as I told you, business research or researchers or opinioners, no? Like questionnaires, we do have opinioners, inventories. So in opinioners we generally use yes or no. Okay? But in the present context of research, generally we go for rating scales. There are directional scales. They simply say, one of my friend is working in cognizant technology. When somebody is seeking position there, they will welcome, the interview board will welcome them, and they will ask, where do you rate yourself, and what is the level of difficulty, the questions that we can put in. They will give 1 to 10 options. So if the person, basically what the ignorant person will do, I rate my confidence and my intellectuality as 10. Then they will have a set of questions, already standardized questions for the range of 10. If they take that particular set of questions, they can't even answer one question. So you have to rate yourself meaningfully whenever you are rating. So likewise, your rating should be normal, your rating should be scattered, your rating should be understood by all the persons. This is what we call it as the characteristics of a good test. You do have, we study in MT, like we don't understand the meaning of the terms. Maybe even though we understand the very basics. So what is reliability, what is validity, what is objectivity. If some of your professors is involved in developing questions for your, because I was involved, I am involved in developing questionnaire for your TET examination for Andhra, and they will tell the difficulty level. Okay, for even school examination, I used to come here. They will tell the difficulty level. They will tell the ratios, the discrimination index. So you have to set questions accordingly based on the difficulty level. So if it is reliable, valid, objectivity, subjectivity, practicability, usability, feasibility, of many criteria you have to remember. Of those 2 criteria is very important. One is reliability and validity. Okay. For any test of psychometric basis, reliability is very essential. Okay. If I am developing a tool, the tool will post in the morning. If I distribute the tool, your responses to the tool is different. In the same tool, if I am giving it to you in the evening, your moods are different. The responses to a tool is different. So this is what reliability means. Reliability is truth, consistency,
over a long period of time. When the tool stands consistent, when the tool expresses its consistency for a longer period of time, then you can say it is reliable. Okay, that is why we say Bell's adjustment inventory. Even now you download the same old items, you find it very reliable. In 1913 it was developed by Hugg M. Bell. Even now many of the psychologists, I hope you will be meeting Kadiravan sir, and they are using the same tool for 100 years, and now even they find it very effective. Why? Because the tool is a standardized tool. So reliability talks about the consistency, anything that stands true for a longer period of time. Even when you select a person, you should select a person based on the consistency, not for the outer beauty, not for the physical beauty and all that, not for the dress ideas, all that. And that may be truthful for that particular moment. That is what we call it as validity. But consistency matters a lot. Consistency is reliability. And similarly, truthfulness is validity. For that particular moment, the test is true. Achievement tests are basically validity based tests, any achievement test. Inside the hall, the question paper is given, it is valid. Once if you take the question paper outside the hall after 3 hours, it is invalid. Okay, so this is how we generally go for measuring the reliability and validity of the test. So anything, so please. So anything that stands true for a very longer period of time is generally put in as consistency, and anything that is so anything that is put in true for that particular period. For example, you take tomato, it is a valid fruit. It is not a consistent fruit. You use tomato everywhere in your cooking, but you cannot keep tomatoes for 6 months. Whereas onion is a reliable fruit, you can keep it for 6 months. But most of the times, even whether you use it or not, it will not get spoiled. So this is how you should remember. For example, you take Dravid is a very reliable player. You will stand in the pitch for 4 days. You ask his score, it will be 30 to 40. Tendulkar is a valid player. He will be there for a very short time. You ask his score whether it will be 0 to 10 or it will be 130 and above. So this is how you should go in for taking the reliability and validity measures. Okay. So this is how we should adopt the internal validity and reliability of the test. Okay. So this is where we use the interpretational for arriving at the interpretational norms, for arriving at the basis of how you are going to standardize your tool. Basically, I told you standardization is not possible for a tool within this particular year. You can say your own tool is standardized if it is used in different contexts over the number of years by different people, then you can call it as a standardized tool. But for the present condition, for the present norms, when you develop a tool, you are testing the tool only for its validity. So this you should keep in mind very strongly. The tool that you are developing for your own research, even though you find reliability and even though you find validity, the tool is only going through the process of validation and not standardization. The standardization is a longitudinal process and validation is a cross-sectional process. So this is what you should, cross-sectional, something cross-sectional that is tested for your own research, that you are trying to find the truthfulness of the test only for that particular sample that you are selecting, for the particular context of the study you are selecting. So this is what is validity, and something you do apply to prove it true for a longer period of time, or whether to test the consistency, then you can say your tool is reliable, and then you can call your own test as a very standardized test. Okay, so this is the primary difference between standardization and validation. So instances where you use standard deviation is that to arrive at certain points where conditionally you say that your test is normally the sample is normally being selected, the sample is distributed, the sample is well scattered. There are many number of groups you are identifying with the sample subgroups. And as I told you yesterday, in the present day context, again you should remember that whenever you say sample subgroups does not depend only on the samples you are selecting, should not depend only on the samples. Like 3 or 4 you can select based on the samples, and 1 or 2 subgroups you should go for selecting based on the variables that you are selecting. Okay. For example, say if you are making a study on accessibility to mobile phones,
And then there is already a grouping like subvariable, variable, all this grouping. One may be gender, the other may be the income level of the parents, all this. Indirectly you ask whether the parents could provide the child with a separate mobile phone. For that purpose you are asking. So any subgroup you are creating should be in line with the study you are making. And these are all the purely sample based subgroup. You should have one or two subgroups based on the variable. I mean, you can ask whether you own a phone or whether you are sharing a phone. Okay? So this particular subvariable, this particular variable, the subgroup is based on the variable you are selecting. Okay? And again you can ask whether open internet access or limited access, unlimited access or limited access. So if it is unlimited access, it means the parental background is well, they have a central Wi-Fi, all that. If it is limited, then you can estimate the conditions of the family, income condition, all that. So likewise, definitely you should go in for variable based subgroups. Please do remember this, because whenever you are creating a master table, the master table should have certain subgroups to be considered with regard to your variables. The subgroups to be primarily related to your variable. There is one condition that we always mistake.
So yesterday I told you, so any master table will be like this. This part will be sample subgroups part. Sample subgroups part. So like you have male, female, okay, this is one subgroup, okay. Here you give scoring. If you are exposed to SPSS, then you know how to score this. Male 1, female 0, like that you will give subgroups. So here government school, private school, aided school. Then again you have certain maybe locality, rural locality or urban locality. Like this you have certain sample. So any master table will be having 3 parts, and this particular part is your independent variable part. Okay, as I told you the previous example, if it is home adjustment, for example, the scores of the first dimension. This variable, for example, you take adjustment as an independent variable. This is the column where we are having the independent variable part. So this is health adjustment, social adjustment and emotional adjustment. Ultimately the total is for 140. Okay. While you are doing statistics, what you should do when you create a master table, while you are going for statistics, as I told you, the standard tool is for 35 items. 35 into 35. For any score you get here, it is only for 35. For this particular dimension. Dimension 1, dimension 2, 3, 4. Certain tools have only 2 dimensions and certain tools have 3 or 4 dimensions. So dimension 1, generally we indicate in this way, independent variable, dimension 1, dimension 2, dimension 3, dimension 4. Okay, and total of the tool. And ultimately what you should do before you begin doing statistics is that you insert a column here. Somebody have got 23 for 35. Then you have to convert the scores into percentage. If you are not converting, the mean scores will be, mean and standard deviation scores will be different. So for any score you get, you insert a column here, try to, if ever you are taking into consideration the tables that you are going to do based on the dimension, you try to insert a column here, convert this into 100. Likewise, you convert this into 100, convert this into 100, and ultimately 140, the total score, no? That also you convert it into 100. Okay. After doing this only, you should go for doing the statistics, only after converting. Similarly, academic achievement scores, you might have collected the 10th standard scores of the 11th standard students. Maybe that may be for 500. What you do is, again you go for doing converting it for 100. This is the dependent variable part. This is the dependent variable. So what is expected? What is expected of these statistics is that actually this is sample subgroup part and this is independent variable part. So for each of the sample subgroup, you are going to find out the significant difference. So whenever you write an hypothesis, there is no significant difference. It is meant only for the groups, sample subgroups. It is meant only for the sample subgroups. Okay. Whenever you write, there is no significant relationship. It is between the variables. Okay. So you know about hypothesis, the null form of hypothesis, alternate form of hypothesis. Null form is generally negative form. In mathematical or statistical perspective, null hypothesis to be created for statistical purpose. If you are doing a descriptive study, then you can have your null hypothesis either in a positive way or in a negative way. But whenever you are going for certain statistical concepts to arrive at what is a table value, what is a calculated value, there are certain norms that you should go for H naught as always negative value, negative hypothesis. So when you will do write, there is no significant, whenever you write there is no significant difference. Okay. Difference between male and female with respect to the independent variable. So t value will be found. This is one condition that you have to always keep in mind. T value or t value is found only on the pretext or the condition that to find out the significant difference among the groups between male and female, between the groups with regard to the independent variable. There is no need to find the t value. If it is 2 groups, you find t value. If it is 3 groups or more than that, you go for finding out ANOVA or F or Duncan. You have many tests. Okay, F test or ANOVA or multiple ANOVA. Based on the number of groups, you go for that. So what you need to understand here is that whenever it is sample subgroups, you write it as there is no significant difference, and you find t value ANOVA. The basic notions that you need to find, the basic statistics that you need to find that are contributing to t value are basically mean and standard deviation. And if in case you need to find a standard error deviation, you can find it separately, or when you find the t value, you can find it along with them. So this is the condition. So sample subgroups with regard to independent variable, this is the condition, t or this. There is no need to find sample subgroups again with the dependent variable, because dependent variable are obviously dependent. You take John W. Best group, they will be wonderfully defining. There is no purpose or there is no point to find out the significant difference between male or female, rural or urban, the groups, no sample subgroups. For the dependent variable, there is no need to find. In descriptive statistics part, you can simply find the significant difference only with the independent variables, number of independent variables. There is no need for you to go for finding out the significant difference between the groups, because dependent variable, as I already told you, are larger variables. They are obviously dependent on so many factors. If I say academic achievement is a big variable, it is obviously dependent on so many factors. There is no need for you to again say these are differing on that. Okay, so with regard to dependent variable, there is no need to find all this. So here, what are all the statistics that you can do between independent variable? Here we do find correlation. Here we do find regression. Okay, that is multiple regression. Okay, here you do find regression analysis, further regression analysis like discriminant functions. Okay, there are certain statistics. You can go for variable-based variable path analysis or factorial design analysis. All that you can apply there. So the condition is that subgroups and independent variable, you find difference either by these statistics, or dependent variable and independent variable, you can find the relationship between this. You also use a term called association. There is no significant association. Association again takes into consideration this and the independent variable, this and the dependent variable. Only in case of association. Association is basically the term that we specifically use to test chi-square. Okay, to test chi-square. As I say, chi-square takes into account the numbers. Where the numbers are present, obviously with the subgroups. So you go for doing, if it is a variable called stress, then you say male and female are suffering from stress will be your hypothesis. Then you say to what level? Two directional. If both the variables have dimension, sometimes dependent variable may not have dimension. Maybe if it is academic achievement, you may not have dimension. If again you have a variable called stress, here also you will have some dimensions. In that case, your tab will be cross tabs. Okay. Maybe this is not one tail, this is two tail, cross tabs. In that case, you say stress in this way, low, maybe eustress or distress or high stress something. And here you say in this direction, and this direction you have adjustment, home adjustment, health adjustment, social and emotional. So this is what we do call cross terms, and here we have grand total. In these cases, you go for finding out chi-square. So these are the three conditions that we generally have. When we go for finding out factor analysis for a self-developed tool, there are two types of factor analysis. I just simply tell you, because in all these statistics, we do often quantize these statistics, whatever may be the statistical measure that you are doing. The primary measures that are contributing to these statistical measures are the measures of deviation in general. Wherever you go for identifying the significance, difference in the sample subgroup, or difference in the randomization of sample, we do use standard deviation. And likewise, we do use quartile range for certain studies, like qualitative studies. We always pick certain quartiles, Q1, Q2, Q3. Generally, we go for Q1 and Q3. Whenever you are going to trying to find item analysis, you generally follow the Q1, Q3 rule. That is the higher, the Q3, Q1 rule. That is Q is equal to, the formula is Q is equal to Q3 minus Q1 divided by 2. 75th quartile minus 25th quartile divided by 2. So when you do item analysis, at the B.Ed you will be studying how to do item analysis. What we do is PH minus PL, percentile of higher score minus percentile of lower score. In that case, what you do is you apply quartile. In order to find the discrimination level and difficulty index. So I am talking based on the pretext that you are exposed to certain theories. You are exposed to the basis of what is what. Okay. You please refer to standard textbooks. Then you know what I am referring to. Okay. So where do we use quartile? Where do we use standard deviation on that? Please. So I think there is not much need of all this for your. There is a logicality in all the presentation, all the three presentations. You can simply follow. Somewhere I have given some important formulas that can be followed, and that are really helpful for you. Primarily, to begin with at the M.Ed level, maybe if you are in the first semester, you can concentrate on learning all this. But once you get into that, automatically this will be a natural process. Sir, next slide, please. Keep moving, sir, please. Okay, next one, sir. Next one, sir. You can move, sir, please. Okay. So even in your net examination, you always have percentage scores nowadays. Previously, you know what are percentage scores. Percentage scores are not basically percentages. Your position within a set of range. And even standard error is that. Standard error is basically, you can, it may be a bit difficult for you to understand what is standard error, but always remember this particular diagram that will tell you, that will easily make you understand what is standard error. So you have a population like this. You have a population. Okay, you inside that you have certain samples. Sample collection 1, sample 2, sample 3, so and sample 4. Okay, sample 5, sample 6. Likewise, you have lot of samples within a population. Don't go for numbers, go for the concepts. Okay, and for all the samples that are distributed inside a population, there is a mean. This is called as sample mean. Okay, and for population, since the samples are contributing to the population, there is a population mean somewhere. Maybe here or somewhere there is a population mean. Okay, so simply to define what is standard error. Standard error is the difference in the standard deviation among the sample mean or with the sample mean with regard to the population. So this is what standard error is. You remember this. Okay. Actually, there are a lot of differences in the standard deviation of the different sample sets. So the difference in the standard deviation of the sample mean with regard to the population mean is called as standard error. Simply, you can define in lot many ways. If you understand what is what the context of what is what, you can simply say, you can simply define anyhow. Okay, there is no pretext or condition that you have to say, define some standard error in this particular manner. So this is what you should remember when you are defining your standard error. Okay.
So kindly run the okay. Since certain topics are defined to me, I have prepared the presentation based on the topic. You can use it later. Okay. So this is what we are talking when we are previous slide, sir. So how to arrive at the interquartile range? So this is what we are talking with regard to how we go for fixing the range for the tool that you have developed. So likewise, sir, not only the measures of variability, but also the measures of relationship, also the measure of regression will help you to understand the different notions that are involved in going for certain statistics. It is not that only higher statistics will give you wonderful ideas on analysis. It is not so. Simple percentages you can use, simple measures of dispersion or measures of tendency will do a lot. Most of the times, statistics is only adopted to say that you have considered data, that you are going through a scientific procedure for analysis. Okay, to prove certain things based on numbers, to prove how does it differ, right from the basic level to the higher level of your research finding. How does it differ? For all this purpose only we are using statistics, and not we should strictly go for, because many of them what they do when they do their PhD or when they do their MD, they simply go to some statisticians, and the statistician, by the click of the mouse, he will run lot of statistics and they will take lot of money from you. Now there is a very big business. To teach you SPSS, it will take only 3 hours. To tell the truth, it will take only 3 hours. But it is not just a talent you need to go for learning SPSS. It is just understanding of the basic concepts. You sit in the system, you open a SPSS screen, within 10 to 15 minutes how to export the table, what are the basic analysis you need in the mouse click. Everything you can do, you can take a printout, you can work on your own. So this is what is SPS. Well, the same case with Amos or R. But they will make a very big picture, like statistics is very big and you have to depend so many, it's not so actually. For research purpose, whatever statistics you need to do, it can be done even with MS Excel also. As I already told you, even if you want, please make a note of certain statistical software. There are innumerable softwares. You can contact me later through your professor. There are very easy softwares like GraphPad. Any one of you please open GraphPad in your mobile. I'll tell you how to find t-value, how to find Kolmogravity inequality, any software, any statistics. So GraphPad is, you please make a note, GraphPad, GRAPHPAD. GraphPad is one simple software. And similarly, socialstatistics.com. I tell you some 5 or 6 online statistics, interactive softwares. Socialstatistics.com. So you please make a note, unless you remember. You keep socialstatistics.com, GraphPad, then Wasserstats, VASAR, Wasserstats. Simply type Wasserstats in Google. It's an interactive software. Along with Wasserstats, whatever you intend to find, you just type. And again, SoftStats, SOFTSTATS, SoftStats. SoftStats. So these are the interactives.
Number 3, sir, please repeat.
VASAR, Wasserstats. GraphPad, then Minitab. Minitab is one wonderful software. And there are certain advanced softwares for certain finding out the transpose, like QSort. So QSB. That is an advanced software like SPSS and R and AMAS. But these Wasserstats, your social sciences, socialstatistics.com, GraphPad, Minitab, all this will help you in arriving almost any of the statistics you need. Whether Wilcoxon sign rank test, any test you can easily. Simply type GraphPad t-test. The t-test page will come. Go for GraphPad chi-square will come. So you can use all these interactive softwares. There is no magic in using it. It is very simple. You can sit in the system for half an hour. You can do n number of tests, n type of tests also with this software. The only thing is you should understand what is a type 1 error, what is a type 2 error. I think you are exposed to what is type 1, type 2. What is type 1 error? What is hypothesis testing? PhD scholars, please tell me whether nowadays any thesis has a concept called hypothesis testing. If you take any thesis carried before 2000, you will find one particular area called hypothesis testing. But nowadays you don't find hypothesis testing in any of the theses. Why? Why? Our basic purpose is to test hypothesis. We write hypothesis, we do a table and we interpret the table. The interpretation of the table that you are writing is only the analytical interpretation of the data. So what is the qualitative interpretation as a researcher and your own experience with the research where you are writing? Where you are writing. So you have to write it with the supporting literature in the context called hypothesis testing. That should be with each and every table that you are presenting in the PhD thesis. Okay, I can show you one of my own students' thesis here, if it is time permits. For every table we would have written hypothesis testing. Analytical interpretation is different. With analytical interpretation, what we are doing is we are trying to interpret the table. What is there in the table you are trying to interpret. And apart from the interpretation, you should simply say hypothesis testing. The hypothesis, the above hypothesis is tested with regard to the variables that has been placed for analysis, and based on the present analysis, we are arriving this. Based on your own experience, you have to write, and again, what you need to do is you have to go for supporting review of literature, and in review of literature, you have quite a large number of reviews that goes in line with the finding or that goes out of your finding. So you have to say that this is in line with this is in concordance with the finding of the previous study. This is not in line with the previous study made. So hence my hypothesis is rejected or accepted. So this is how you should write. Okay. And again, one more common problem that we find nowadays is that none of the theses in the sense, out of 100 theses presented, you can take 100 theses, we don't follow APA formatting presentation. They think APA formatting presentation is only meant for presenting references, bibliography. Whenever somebody talks to you about APA, we think APA is applied only at the bibliography level. Only at the bibliography. Please don't think so. APA is with each and every page. When you take the first page of your thesis, I can say that whether it is going according to the APA or not. Okay? If you are using double quotes, then it's not in line with the APA. When you are using bold, unbold, italics, all that at instances where they are not needed, it is not with the APA. When there is no continuity with the previous paragraph with the present one that you are writing and the present one with the other paragraph that is following, there is no APA. And throughout your thesis, you should not use initials except for the bibliography part. So this is APA. And more than all this, APA is strictly involved in presenting of the numbers, notation, statistical notations, and even to write one page of statistical notation for single table in your PhD thesis or MD thesis, it will take 2 days if you are really following APA. Especially for PhD, you have to spend days and nights in order to present mean value, standard deviation, p-value and critical ratio value in APA format. Even to look and write what is there in the screen, to look and write, it will take you half an hour. Okay, so you have to spend that much of time in order to learn APA and apply it in your thesis. Okay, so this is what we do really learn again and again. And again, when it comes to hypothesis testing, alpha, you should be very much thorough with alpha. What is hypothesis, how to write an hypothesis. In the afternoon session, I'll let you know about how to write hypothesis technically or scientifically. And because why I say this, many of them when you ask what are the number of hypotheses or what are the number of objectives, somebody say that it is 40 objectives or 15 objectives or 20 objectives. You cannot have more than 4 objectives or 5 objectives. Major. To be frank, to go to some standard ERIC databases, you find some wonderful thesis written only with 4 or 5 objectives. Okay? And especially objectives are also classified as minor objectives and major objectives. This is for the sake of ML students. The minor hypotheses are the ones that deal with the sample subgroup and the independent variable, as I told you, minor hypothesis. Major hypothesis are that deals with the variables, the independent and the dependent variable. And further major hypothesis will be the hypothesis of contribution. When you do regression, you say how much this particular variable is contributing to the dependent variable, or else vice versa. Sometimes the dependent variable, you will not achieve significance when you do regression. At that time, what you need to do, you have to change the input variable. Primarily what we do, firstly we input independent variable, then we input dependent variable. You see the level of significance. If there is no significance, that means your independent variables are not sufficiently or significantly contributing to the dependent variable. Otherwise, if in case you are not achieving any significance in regression, then what you need to do is you have to reverse the variables. Firstly, you go for putting the dependent variable, then you input the independent variable, then you will achieve significance. That means your dependent variable is significantly contributing to your achievement. Whatever may be the contribution, whatever study you make is meaningful. Only thing is you should study it in a very true way. Whether all the hypotheses you get significant, all the hypotheses you don't get significant, don't worry about it, because we are just studying, we are making a study to prove certain aspects. If it is not proved also, then the study is valid. At the last moment, many researchers will find nothing will be significant, and by just manipulating, they will show everything as significant. And then again by comparing, because in regression you have R value, you have R square. R value simply represents your correlation. There in the correlation, they would have given R value as something different. Here for the sake of manipulation, they would have manipulated R value as something different. So everything goes in line. Okay? So be very careful about manipulating your data. And again, please go for referring to the need for hypothesis testing. What is type 1 error? What is type 2 error? Okay? When you achieve a negative sign in correlation, that means that you have to interpret the same notion in a different context. Okay? Same notion in a different context. So type 1 error, as you all know, it is alpha error, and type 2 error, as you all know, it is a beta error. When you reject a correct hypothesis, it is type 1 error. When you accept a false hypothesis, it is a type 2 error. That's all. Okay? If, for example, if you make a study, the good habits constitute to academic achievement. Okay? Certain times, maybe sometimes it says there is no need of good habits. Somebody not with so much of good habits, he would have differed totally in the tool. Okay, I would wake up early in the morning, I don't smoke, I don't drink. All these are the items that you have written. And one person, one or few individuals would have given, they would have scored all that negatively. In the sense, as they say, that I have all the habits, beyond all my bad habits, I have good achievement. In some cases, if that proves to be, that is found to be true, at that instance you have to write in the interpretation that this is a type 2 error based hypothesis. Okay, the result is based on the result is interpreted on the basis of type 2 error, that is beta error. In this particular, it is not so that persons with bad habit are high achievers. In this context, it is wrong. The hypothesis framed is suffering type 2 error. Again, it may be concluded that only persons with good habits are high in achievement. Likewise, you should conclude. Okay, you should be able to interpret it in a way that you are highlighting what type of error that particular hypothesis suffers, with which you conclude the context of hypothesis. Okay, so for applying of statistics, knowledge of, as we say generally, we always talk about H0 and H1 as null and alternate. Actually, this is a testable hypothesis, and that is the resultant hypothesis. Okay, the hypothesis, this is a tentative statement or an assumption you are making, the null hypothesis. There, you are assuming that it to be true, that it is a proved hypothesis, your alternate hypothesis. So, throughout your hypothesis testing, you are using your mean to interpret. When you have the knowledge of how to see how much mean contributes in testing of the hypothesis, how much your standard deviation constitutes to your thing, or else simply the sign will contribute, plus or minus sign. When you go for experimental studies, the positive, that is, you have 3 dimensions, no? Whenever I say experimental hypothesis, you should have a picture in your mind. One is pre-experimental, true experimental, quasi-experimental. Quasi-experimental, you have 5 types. What are the 5 types? Please ask yourself, please find it. True experimental, there are 5 or 6 types. Pre-experimental, you have again 4 or 5 types. Okay? In true experimental, you have pre-test, post-test designed for equivalent groups. Pre-test only designed for
Solomon 4 group design, randomized block design. Then again you have repeated measures design. Okay. In pre-test you have one short case study, all this. So for experimental studies, even you apply simple statistics like the difference between the scores of pre-test and post-test, or else the correlation scores of pre-test and post-test. The simple symbols will tell the significance. The symbols will define the significance. Okay. And having one deviation score, you find simply the standard deviation of one set. For example, you are making an action research with 30 students. You are going as a maths teacher. You are testing the previous knowledge. You are doing a pre-test. So you try to find out the standard deviation. So for 30 students, the standard deviation is somewhere near 18 or 19. It shows that what does it mean in a class? You are pre-testing the knowledge of maths students in a classroom. So your standard deviation score is somewhere between 16 and 18, and your mean score is somewhere between 40 and 50. Sorry, if it is 55. So what does it mean? You should know based on the classroom condition that whether the 55% is the average, actual average. If it is an actual average, then the teacher's work is very much less. The teacher's work is more expected of the mean. Because your classroom average, because when you go to certain schools like Sinmaya Vidyalaya, Bhatma Shishadri, Bal Bhavan, the minimum score, the 10th standard previous year's marks, if you analyze, the minimum score will be 81, the maximum score will be 100. So the range will be totally high. So there, even though the mean scores are higher, it can be concluded that, yesterday I told you that when the mean score is more, it is skewed. But when conditions occur that you have to positively see it, the teacher's work is to the extent of 80%, to a minimal extent of 80%, to a maximal extent of 100%. The teacher's work. The teacher has put in so much of effort that all her students' average lies at a minimal range of 80. When the minimal range is somewhere suffering between 55-40, it means a teacher's work is expected. So likewise, when government goes for doing analysis, the block-wise analysis, when 10th results come in, the government will immediately constitute a committee, calling some college professors, maths professors. They will do a lot of analysis, area-wise analysis, corporation schools, area-wise analysis of government schools. And based on the analysis, they will even transfer the teacher. The teacher will be punished. Why? Because you have not produced significant average results. So you take some other school, you go to some rural school, they will be posted somewhere. Okay? So averages, standard deviations, having one standard deviation, you can tell how much of deviations occur inside the class, how much of differences are there between the students. Okay? Standard deviation measure tells how much the students differ from one another. What is the discrimination index of your class? You may be always concentrating on the higher achievers. You may be largely concentrating on the average. When there are certain failures, you are failing to concentrate on them. Okay? Then that is identified by the standard deviation scores. So when you divide the class, then again you are applying quartile. So likewise, application of these statistics vary at large. Vary at large. Only your knowledge and your efficiency to interpret certain aspects are most sought after. So these are some of the measures of variability, and generally measures of variability are not limited. Actually, it is extended to many statistical areas. Even in regression, you find you know how regression is to be interpreted. When you see a regression table, there will be a concept called R square. If R square is 0.489, you have to interpret it in such a way that 48.9% is the contribution of this variable to that variable. When regression fails, again you come back to standard deviation. Okay. So likewise, the knowledge of interpretation, because knowledge you cannot get on one single day. You have to keep on working late at night. Maybe it will be constructed like bit by bit. Little sands or little grains of sand make a mighty ocean. So that is the basis for our knowledge construction also. It can be applied. So you have to work a lot, you have to really sit in a lot. Even if you are trying to come as a wonderful researcher, you have to see that you have to spend so much of time on it. To understand even a single concept, you have to keep reading it again and again and again. So with this, I think I can stop. Maybe in the evening session, I'll elaborate to you on how to write hypothesis, how testing of hypothesis is done. Certain important areas I have secured to really share with you in the evening session. So with very humble and polite thanks from me,
to your senior professors, those who have taken pains to conduct this particular 10-day workshop. I conclude my session. Thank you so much. So if you have any questions, please do. Please, sir, sorry.
Thing is, there is a misconception among our staff members with regard to qualitative research and quantitative research.
Yes.
So some of our staff members, they are writing hypotheses in descriptive.
Okay.
Is it necessary?
Yeah, actually, for qualitative study they can write, but for quantitative study it
is mandatory.
It is mandatory.
Yes.
Yes.
So, if necessary, where, in which type of descriptive is hypothesis?
In the qualitative research, sir?
Qualitative.
Okay, sir. So, for example, when I entered the university, I saw the holistic personality of the individuals. So, I thought in case if academic achievement is my dependent variable, along with academic achievement, I just wanted to study the holistic development of those who are studying in Sanskrit university when in comparison with some other holistic development. You say there is holistic development, even when you disagree with me, there is holistic. When you enter, when you read a slogan, what is presented in it, because I was also developed in such a campus, Loyola College of Chennai, wherein the environment maketh man. However you are, the environment will correct you. So if I am trying to study holistic development as a variable, can you think holistic development is measured? That cannot be measured. So I write an hypothesis, pretexting or contexting myself that students studying in this particular university have high levels of holistic understanding and spiritual development. So this is a qualitative variable that cannot be measured. So my measurable variable is academic achievement. My quantitative variable is achievement, and qualitative variable is holistic achievement. In this context, I simply write an hypothesis in a positive direction, and supporting by the observation or supporting by the interview or the experience that I am having while collecting data for my quantitative, I can understand the integrity of the students, based on which I simply write, not simply supporting with certain necessary details of what I experienced, of what I perceived of the campus, everything. I conclude that, or I may write that there is a holistic presence in the campus by which it can be concluded that all students, those who are studying in this particular university, are holistic and spiritual. So this is how a qualitative variable is studied in line with the quantitative variable. If it is purely a qualitative study, then there are many softwares actually. Even actually there are qualitative studies ocean actually. Nowadays we are oriented to concentrate on qualitative aspects by ICSSR. Those who have done the project, they were called us, they have given an orientation. The talk, a person who is giving talk is a qualitative study. A person who is, maybe nowadays there are softwares. If Google CEO is speaking for 1 hour, a software tells that he is using only 4 or 5 terminologies, 4 or 5 phrases. He has used it for 40 times during that 1 hour conversation. This is done by a software. So there are many softwares. I have a long list of softwares. Session1 is one software. Atlas CA is one software. Factor analysis, you write number of items you write verbally. And based on the responses, quantitative responses, our SPSS is doing factor analysis. But simply you write the items. To find the quality of the items, there is a software called Atlas TA or Session1. In that, if you apply there is no need of any numerical data. You write a paragraph or you write 100 statements, you feed it in Session1. Ultimately, what it does is, first statement, 14th statement, 28th statement, all that it combines together. Why? Because it tries to identify similarity in the statements. If I have used home, mother, father in different places of 100 items, it combines all the terminologies that constitutes to a home and all the terminologies that constitutes to a school and other social environment. Then it will say you have 3 dimensions. Okay, likewise it is dimension. Qualitative items are evaluated. So there is a need when we go for writing hypothesis. Definitely you can put it as a simple statement. You can treat a statement as a separate statement. Even for my project also, for practical oriented study, I conducted teacher's attitude. This is an ICSSR project. Part of it is purely qualitative. Teacher's attitude towards practical oriented teaching of maths. So teachers' attitude towards purchasing a laptop. Teachers still wait the government to give laptop even after being a salary. PG teachers mostly in Tamil Nadu with 10 years of experience, they may get more than 1,10,000 rupees. They may wait for the government to give a laptop. And they will wait the school to provide models. The models should be given to the maths teacher. Then the maths teacher will take the models to the class. It should not be your attitude. You should develop a model. And also you should think that the models are not very solid models. Simply a paper folding. You can come with a paper, you can fold the paper, you can do marvels with it. Okay? So the attitude of teachers is a qualitative variable where the researcher is the major contributor to the qualitativeness. Yesterday I told you that when it is quantitative study, the role of the researcher is very less. The role of data is large. You are just interpreting the data. The role of the researcher is just trying to interpret the data. But in qualitative research, the role of the researcher is more. The data is small. Take, for example, any of the biologists you see in National Geographic channel. They would have lived 30 years in Amazon. Whom I am mentioning to? Huh? Yeah, many names. A person who is living with the ants, Olsen, person named Olsen. There are many biologists. They spend years together in forest, years together on one single area. In Olsen's case, actually Olsen is the one who has researched ants more. Actually, the National Geographic has published a separate volume on Olsen's work. It's a purely qualitative work, full of photographs. So Olsen, when he was a child, is generally a disturbed child, born with some problem. He was almost crying all the time, So at one point, his mother observed that he was not crying. The mother was very happy. She is very much keen to know what made him to not to cry. Why he is not crying? Because most of the times he cries. So again the mother takes him, puts him somewhere else, he is crying. Again the mother takes him, puts him back to one place where he has not cried, he is not crying. So this is the life of Olsen from his first day of his life to the age of 92 till he died. So his area of interest is ants. Whenever the child is put somewhere over the corner, there are certain ants, by observing the ants, the child is quiet. Okay, so he naturally has a curiosity of how ants are born. So he dedicated his whole life to the study of ants. You can see it in photographs. Okay, so likewise, qualitative researchers are totally dependent on the researcher interest. Okay, as you are the researcher, to whatever depth you can carry. One of my own professor will always say, this is 11 o'clock, our class is 11 o'clock, see the tree, in another 5 minutes 2 crows will come and sit there. Every day we can see at the same time 2 crows will come and sit. Only your observation, your depth, your perception, okay, your time to see certain things happen. Okay, so the curiosity of the researcher matters most in qualitative research. So that is why the researcher's role is expected more in qualitative. Nowadays, almost even many of the central government projects also, what is the qualitative perspective or qualitative outcome of the study, they are asking very specifically. Simply you present data, you say significant, not significant, what is the role, use of it, ultimately where you are contributing to the research, what data set that you are creating, that they are asking in even ICSSR format. Okay, so with this I conclude my session as time is 11, professor is waiting. Sir, please.
What about meta-analysis?
Sir?
What about meta-analysis?
Meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a wonderful concept. So you apply, for example, because this example I studied in one wonderful textbook, experimental research. People will always relate, because this example is a wonderful example. People will generally relate if somebody is found to be disturbed mentally, they will relate it to the movement of the moon. Today is Amavasya, so you can find some problems with this person. So this is a general notion. In certain context of the countries, like India, being so religious, we generally... But meta-analysis talks about a wider perspective. Researching one problem in very many perspectives, looking into multi-dimensional perspective. Ultimately, the study concludes that there is no relationship between this and that. Okay, even though there is relation, there is a very minimal or a minimal relationship that cannot be proved scientifically. Okay,
And there are certain meta-analysis, one other academic meta-analysis you can find with visible learning. You go for visible learning. On visible learning, a person has studied around 2 lakh students. I have also wrote a paper on that particular area. This particular person has researched so many research on whether the learning is visible or not. The simple question, the hypothesis is this, whether learning is visible or not. If I am guiding this person, his learning is visible or not. Visible in the sense what? Whether you are learning something or not. If the class is over, whether you have learned something or not. If I ask you to write certain things, if you are writing, it is visible. If you are asking you certain questions, you are answering that, it is visible. Or else if there is no visibility of learning, he concludes that there is no visible learning happens. So this is a meta-analysis carried out. You simply go type visible analysis, you will get one important significant name that talks to you about. Meta-analysis is this, okay? You study in different contexts, try to prove it by means of different analysis, not triangulation, but by means of different analysis. Then you conclude that whether it is really actual or non-actual.
Sir,
So please.
I am little doubt. The result of the research, are consumer conscious.
Or
The result.
the result of the research.
Research.
Okay.
Consumer conscious.
Okay.
But I have little doubt. I have a question. Which type of error is more dangerous for a researcher, and which type of error is more type of consumer?
Okay. Actually, present day context suffers with type 1 research. It's because type 1 research are careless errors that any researcher is making. Because you don't select sample properly. Sampling. Not only the sample, you don't write the tool seriously. You don't write. The study you have selected is a very wonderful study. Any study, simply say anxiety leading to achievement. The concept is this: high anxiety leads to low achievement, moderate anxiety to high achievement, moderate to above average and high achievement. You should have anxiety. Okay? I should not sleep. I may not be able to sleep to present this lecture. So the anxiety should be to a certain extent. That is moderate anxiety to high achievement. So low anxiety, low achievement. There is no anxiety. Even for 12th exam, for interview, certain people will have no anxiety at all. For any conduct of any workshop like this, they will not have any anxiety. They will simply come by 11 o'clock. They will not worry about anything. Then that represents low anxiety. So this is a known interpretation. So you are making again a study on this particular area. So you are not following the same tool that was adopted in the study that have given this particular result. In this context, when you are not seriously writing the tool, seriously reviewing the literature, seriously selecting the sample, seriously administering the tool, will cause type 1 error. Type 1 error is that a true hypothesis is rejected for wrong reasons. So your study is a good study. You are not putting so much of efforts in order to prove that your study is valid. So it is obviously type 1. Okay. You are not making any wrong assumptions. Okay, as I told you, if I am choosing one assumption, only persons with bad habits will have high achievement. If I have fixed a certain hypothesis, then it is a type 2 error. A wrong hypothesis trying to be proved to be right and accepted for right reasons. It is a type 2 error. Okay. So with this I think I can conclude. So thank you very much for your very patient listening. Thank you so much.
वंदे जगद्गुरु कार्यशालायाम् अस्यां विषय विशेषज्ञरूपेण समवेताः वर्तन्ते एस् प्रभुशङ्कर महोदयाः महोदयैः साङ्ख्यिकपद्धतीनां चरणानां मापनं वैधता विश्वसनीयता उपकरणानां च विषये शोधारणे प्रतिपादितं महोदयेभ्यः कार्यशालापक्षतः विभागपक्षतः विश्वविद्यालयपक्षतश्च धन्यवादः अनुजगृहीते तद्वदेव कार्यशालायाम् अस्माकं कृते कल्पितेभ्यः निर्देशक महोदयेभ्यः संयोजक महोदयेभ्यः सह संयोजक महिलेभ्यश्च तथा च विविध विश्वविद्यालयात् समागतेभ्यः आचार्येभ्यः शोधछात्रेभ्यश्च धन्यवादं वितरोमि व्यवस्था।